Welcome to Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by FantasyGuru.com. Monday through Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 a.m. Pacific. Ray Flowers breaks it all down for you from a fantasy sports perspective. Hey there, everyone. Ray Flowers of FantasyGuru.com. Hope you're doing well on this fine Tuesday? I don't even know what day it is. It's Tuesday, right? We had Monday Night Football last night. Yeah, that's right. We had Monday Night Football last night. It's a Tuesday. Happy Tuesday, everyone. I'm Ray Flowers of FantasyGuru.com. You can find my work over at FG. It's FantasyGuru.com if you didn't put that together. You can find my work over there on articles, in chat rooms and Discord, baseball, football, all of it over there. You can also find me on social media at The Ray Flowers. Just type it in. Most of the places I have an account. Doesn't mean I actually am active there, but you can try it out at The Ray Flowers. I'm here with you every day, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Justin Fessman will be with you tomorrow. That's a Wednesday. He's with you every Wednesday. So Monday through Friday, 12 o'clock Eastern time here on the show. We're rocking and rolling. Free content, access to the minds and the geniuses that partake in the package over at FantasyGuru.com. So we give you a little bit of a tease with that. We hopefully give you some entertainment and some information here. Maybe you'll want to join us. And if you do want to join us, there's an easy way to do that. Go to FantasyGuru.com, click the subscribe tab in that top right corner of the page. Right now, we've got that special going on. All of our football content, except for the Super Bowl betting package. Everything else, you get it for one low price, $65 the rest of the way. That's all the seasonal rankings, articles, Discord. That's all the DFS, whether you're playing GPP or cash game. Access to the Discord, access to the live streams that they talk about that. That's all included. Same thing with the wagering aspect of things, access to all the bets and the minds and the Discord rooms and all of that over at FantasyGuru.com. So click that subscribe tab in the top right corner. We also have a second way. This is you can either give a gift to yourself or give a gift to someone else. You can buy a gift card at FantasyGuru.com. And you buy that gift card, and we give you some free Fantasy Guru swag. No, not swag. Free cash? I'm having a hard time talking this morning. Free cash. So you put $50 down, you get $65. We give you free money. So you can get it for yourself. You can get it for a friend or family member. Maybe one of your friends really needs help at fantasy football. Maybe they don't know what they're doing in fantasy baseball. Maybe they love fantasy basketball. Check it out. FantasyGuru.com/product/gift-card. That's FantasyGuru.com/product/gift-card to get involved there. And finally, before we get into the information here today, don't forget that we talk a lot, obviously, about football on here, and I have a preference for baseball. But we have the MVP package. And the MVP package over at FantasyGuru.com right now includes basketball, college basketball, NHL, MMA, PGA, NASCAR, and horse racing. All of those are one package. You get them all. So whether you want NBA or NHL or MMA or PGA or soccer or horse racing or NASCAR or college basketball, we'll give you all the other ones for free. Click that subscribe tab in the top right corner of the page. Okay. What are we doing? It is a Tuesday. We'll review Monday Night Football. We had a doubleheader. So we actually have two games to review and some ineptitude in one game and some in the other game. We had two football games at least on a Monday. We'll go through all of that in about 25 or so minutes. We will be visiting with Armando Marsalis. He's going to talk the waiver wire, and there's a lot to talk about here in semifinal week for most people in fantasy football. Carson Wentz, Jerome Ford, Tyjae Spears, Ty Johnson, Jalen Coker, Romeo Doubs, Jalen McMillan, Malik Washington, Brenton Strange, Stone Smartt. A lot of pass catchers that maybe could help your team out this week or next week as well. We'll talk to Armando Marsalis in about 25 minutes. Every Monday, it's me running solo. Every Tuesday, Armando joins us to talk waiver wires about halfway through the show. Wednesdays, it's Justin Fensterman, and then he's joined by Rich Miletto. Thursdays, it's me, and then Tyler Beaker comes in about halfway through to talk about Thursday Night Football. And then on Fridays, it's me and Russell Clay, all of us, part of the package you get if you go click that subscribe tab in the top right corner over at FantasyGuru.com. All right, let's start out talking about the Bears game. The Bears lost to the Vikings 30-12. Bears fall to 4-10. The Vikings go to 12-2. The results, completely unsurprising. This is exactly how everyone expected the game to go. Let's start on the Bears side of things. We've talked a lot about Caleb Williams and the expectations being really high for him this year, and rightfully so. A talented guy with a lot of weapons around him. There's been moments where it's been bad. There's been moments where it's gelled, and there's been moments where, it's just been kind of blah. And I think last night was one of those kind of blah It wasn't bad. He didn't turn the ball over. He threw for 191 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. Well, he did have a fumble, so I lied. He did turn the ball over, just not with his arm. And he's done a very good job of late, just not turning the ball over, frankly. And that's, helped the offense out in a substantial manner. He's actually a top 15 quarterback. Where is he at right now? Let's look at this right now. I think he's a top 15 quarterback on the course of the year. So before everyone says, oh, he's terrible this year, oh my gosh. This is what I do every Friday in my Coffin Corner piece. You can find that over at fantasyguru.com. I talk about the numbers that people sometimes miss. And coming into the week, Caleb Williams was quarterback 13. Right now, he's quarterback 14. He's actually ahead of Justin Herbert. He's ahead of Jordan Love. He's ahead of Matthew Stafford and C.J. Stroud and Tua Tagovailoa and Kirk Cousins. We'll talk about later. So he's been okay. Last night was just meh. It was just okay. And when he is just okay, and look, he holds on to the ball too long at times. The offensive line doesn't do a very good job at times. They don't necessarily run an offense that's super spread and open and wow, let's get excited about this. So as a result, there's some muted numbers here, though. Two of the guys that pass catchers did come through. The first one to talk about is Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen had 6 receptions, 82 yards and a touchdown. And Keenan Allen, who showed up overweight, I don't know, he gained a bunch of weight this offseason, got hurt, didn't perform for a while. He's back in our lives. And he's, the touchdowns have started to come a little more frequently than they certainly were at the beginning of the season. And that's helped boost his value because there aren't a lot of huge efforts here in terms of receptions. It's 4 or 5 catches and 50 yards. He has scored 4 touchdowns now in 4 games, and that's really intriguing. Now, he did bagel up. He threw 3 catches for 30 yards last week against the Niners. But the other 3 games, he's had 5 catches every game for 70 yards and a touchdown. So he is absolutely rounding into form just at the right time. He's not a sexy play despite those numbers. That's 3 games out of 4 where he's had 20 PPR points. That's pretty good. He's clearly a strong wide receiver 3 at the moment. I still hesitate to say wide receiver 1 just because of the way the offense operates. Wide receiver 2, because of how the offense operates. But he definitely is within the starting conversation if you're in a league that starts 3 guys. The other wide receiver that came through last night was DJ Moore. Now, DJ Moore actually had 3 carries for 24 yards, so he added a little bit there. He caught 8 passes, which is great, but those were 46 yards. And he only had 8 targets. So he caught every target, not only 8, but you get the point. He caught every target. Didn't get in the end zone. And that's, whereas Keenan Allen is getting in the end zone, DJ Moore is not getting in the end zone. They are trying to find ways to get him involved, though, in the offense. And if you look at things with the Bears, DJ Moore has had 5 straight games of catching at least 6 passes. In those 5 games, he's averaging 7.2 catches a game, which is a huge number. Unfortunately, it's only for 72 yards. He has scored 2 touchdowns in 5. He's also scored 2 touchdowns since week 5. So, but they're finding a way to get him involved. He's routinely giving you, 15 PPR points. It's not sexy or exciting, but there it is. Get you involved there with the offense. And, continuation of this is to be expected in this offense. Now we get to Romeo Odunze, who, we have a lot of high hopes for still. Obviously, he was a first-round draft pick, top 10 overall. He and Caleb Williams are friends. They are bros, all that stuff we talk about all the time. He had 2 catches for 39 yards last night. And, he is a significant part of this offense. He's always on the field. He's routinely getting 6-7 targets a week. He's involved. But he clearly is the 3rd receiver in the pecking order. And though he scored 2 touchdowns against the Niners, those are the only touchdowns he scored since week 3. So he's not getting in the end zone. If you look at his performances, there's, some 5 and 6 catch games. But look at his yardage since that week 3, 10, 40, 40, 41, 104, 23, 65, 39, 25, 42, 39. He's basically catching 3 balls for 40 yards and not getting in the end zone. There is a ton of excitement for him long-term. Dynasty keeper leagues, I don't think we've seen a single thing this year to dissuade anyone from being excited. But in terms of what we're getting from him this season in the fantasy space, he's an extremely difficult player to start. You obviously know that in the fantasy playoffs. By the way, Cole Kmet, is he in the witness protection program? Since they changed things up with the OC and the head coach here, Cole Kmet is gone. Bye-bye. Cole Kmet had 10 targets and 7 catches in week 12. Those were high watermarks for him. He had, other than week 3 where he had 11 targets and 10 catches. Basically, he's had 2 games this year, really, not 3. He's had 3 games this year where he's been any good. He's had 2 25-pointers and another 14-pointer. That's it. And it's a ton of single-digit efforts. And if you look at his last 3 games, last 3 games, he has 8 PPR points total. 4 catches, 40 yards. He's not part of the offense. Don't stream him. Don't use him in DFS. Don't bother with Cole Kmet. Just not happening. On the other side of things, the Vikings, this football game, again, pretty handily, 30-12. Sam Darnold went for 231, 1-1. Not great. When you throw those numbers into the mix, 40 pass attempts, really not great. But they won the football game. He only had 1 interception. He continues to be okay. He continues to be fine. He continues to be somebody that you can start and, feel confident you're going to get a decent effort. Are you excited about using him most weeks? No. Now, let's give the guy a break. He threw 5 touchdown passes last week. That's still 6 in 2 games. He's only thrown 1 pick in 5 games. He does have double-digit touchdowns in 4 or 5. So there's nothing on the ground. There is volatility in terms of yardage. But cleaning up the turnover game has obviously made him usable yet again here in the fantasy space. And he's performing well here as we're in the fantasy playoffs. Now, yesterday was a disappointing effort, and hopefully you didn't lose your matchup because it was a very moderate effort from him. But I think the biggest takeaway from that passing effort is that we still had our 3 guys, Vikings, produce. Not produce huge numbers, but they were still productive. When your quarterback goes 231-1 on 40 attempts, you get a little nervous, right? You go and look there. Justin Jefferson, 7 for 73 and a touchdown. Another really strong effort for him. The floor for Justin Jefferson is uber high. I just realized I've been small. Maybe you like that. Let's get me a little bigger. I just realized that. Sorry. Maybe you don't care. Maybe it was good when my face is small. The floor for Justin Jefferson is uber high. The ceiling, it's barely above the floor. Like, we know that, right? There's not a lot of separation there. He might have had a second touchdown that he dropped last night. Would have made things, there would have been that ceiling, right? But 773-1, we'll obviously take that every single week. Interestingly, Jordan Addison had 7 catches for 63 yards. Now, he didn't get in the end zone, okay? And maybe for some rash people, that's a disappointment. That's 9 targets. And if you look at his usage here, the last 5 games, 8, 9, 6, 12, 9. Those are the target totals. His last 5 games, he's averaging 9 targets a week. That's a big number when you have Justin Jefferson on the other side of the field. He's averaging 6 catches for 95 yards in that time. Now, it's one of those things that he's had 2 huge games in those 5 outings. So though he's averaging 95 yards the last 5 games, he's only hit 65 yards twice, right? But he scored 5 touchdowns. So, yeah. He had, I'm looking at it quickly here. He had 70 of his 107 PPR points in 2 games. So that means the other 3 games, he's averaging about 14 PPR points. We could totally take it. It's a fantastic wide receiver 3. I think the volume he's getting is what makes me so confident in him, because early in the season, he wasn't getting the volume. He was getting 4 or 5 targets. He was catching 3 passes every week. That has changed. The team has finally figured out a way to involve him consistently in the offense, and that's a huge benefit for him, for Darnold, and even for Jefferson. Finally, we had Tyjae Hockenson, who, he's not playing in 12 personnel. When there's 2 tight ends on the field, they're taking him off the field. He's not a big blocker or anything like that. So, that's not shocking, but it does cap his ceiling, because he's never, he's at 75% of the snaps and he's in 6 targets. Like, he's just not out there all the time. And again, he had another 5 catch for 52 yards last night, 10 PPR points, totally fine. You look at him, though, his last 3 games, he's averaging 8 PPR points? It's light. Hasn't gotten the end zone a single time since he's returned. Has 1 game of 75 yards since he's returned. And he's averaging 4 catches the last 3 weeks. So he's fine. You can keep starting him. Again, the floor with him is pretty good for the tight end position. There's just no ceiling. Part of that because of Addison and Jefferson. Part of that because of the passing attack. And part of that because of the next guy we're going to talk about, Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones getting it done. 18 carries, 86 yards, and a touchdown. Caught a couple of passes for 20 extra yards. Aaron Jones is really good. And I think he's missed some time with injuries. And, there's been a lot of times in his career where he's not getting 22 touches a game. And so people kind of look at him and think, well, he's kind of not a satellite back, but kind of just a solid, he's really good. As long as he can hold on to the football, right? That's been the issue for him of late, the ball security. Didn't fumble the ball again last night. scored. I think that's 3 or 4 games. He's got a touchdown now for the Vikings. You can start Jones with a high level of confidence. There's not a lot of game-breaking, slate-breaking production from him. So you're not getting that, but you're getting that consistent bottom-level running back 1, high-level running back 2 performance week after week after week, and we saw it again from him last night. And then finally, Cam Akers. Vikings love them some Cam Akers. They had Ty Chandler. Ty Chandler played 1 snap. Right? They had Ty Chandler. They went out and got Cam Akers for a trade. Second time they've done that. 10 carries for 24 yards and a touchdown. The backfield is Jones's. Akers is not utilized in the passing game. He only comes in and kind of is a breather back kind of scenario for Jones, but they find ways to get him the ball. At this point of the season, you're in desperation mode if you're playing Cam Akers. Like, if you're in the playoffs, you shouldn't be dealing with this. But if something were to happen to Aaron Jones, Cam Akers likely would see the 18 touches a week himself. So keep that in mind if you're still looking to back up Aaron Jones with that handcuff. The other game to talk about, Atlanta and the Raiders, and I mean, woof. Falcons win this game 15-9. They moved to 7-7. They've got a chance at the playoffs, all of that. Raiders fall to 2-12. The Falcons offense is in complete disarray. And Kirk Cousins threw a touchdown last night. That's his first touchdown pass in 5 games. He went 11 for 17 for 112 yards. The Falcons had no interest last night in doing anything at all other than winning a football game, and they were just going to run it. They were going to try to bleed the clock out and run the football and just walk away with the victory. And they did exactly what they wanted to do. The problem is this offense, like I said, is in its dire straits right now, man. It's Bijan Robinson in a cloud of dust. Kirk Cousins has got 1 touchdown pass in 5 games, which I think Desmond Ridder on the other side could do better than that. How he threw a touchdown pass last night. Like, it's catastrophic fail for this offense through the air last night. And, you know, that's – so let's look at this. His last 5 games for Cousins, he has 1 touchdown pass. He's thrown an interception in every single one of the 5 games. He's got 9 interceptions. So 1 touchdown, 9 interceptions in 5 games. I mean, that's catastrophic. And we're seeing the trickle-down effect here, and we'll talk about it when we discuss these pass catchers. This offense, and with what we have seen over a month now, it's hard to feel like all of a sudden they're going to turn things on down the stretch here, which makes all the pass catchers for the Falcons just dicey plays. And we'll start out with Drake London. Drake London had a touchdown, luckily, the only touchdown of the game for the Falcons. He had a touchdown, 3 catches for 53 yards. He had 3 targets. And the 3 targets was second on the team. So Drake London is the money player in this offense as a pass catcher. Even with the struggles of Kirk Cousins, Drake London has done enough to be an active member of your fantasy squad. His production the last 5 games, let's pull it up and look at it. The last 5 games, if I learned to count properly, I didn't. I counted 4. The last 5 games for him, his average effort has been 5.6 catches for 73 yards. That touchdown he scored last night was his first in 5 games, obviously, because Cousins hadn't had a touchdown pass. So he's been averaging, 14 PPR points a week. Again, it's totally usable. It's not sexy or exciting. It's not the guy that was routinely putting up 18 or 20 to start the year, but it's usable. And he continues to be that guy. Even last night, 14 points on 3 targets. They got to get him the ball more. The Giants are terrible. That's who they play next week. The Giants are just terrible. It's got to get better for him. It's got to. Now, Darnell Mooney has taken it on the snoot with this lack of production in the offense. Darnell Mooney has been under 30 yards in 3 of the last 4 games. The one game he wasn't under, he was over 140. But he's been under 30 yards in 3 games, including last night where he had 0 catches on 1 stinking target. 0. And I told someone in Discord to play him over Addison because they had Jefferson. No, wait. Who did they have? They had Hockenson. Maybe it was Hockenson. I didn't want him to play 2 Vikings. And I said, well, go Mooney. Sorry. Just again, catastrophic. That's 3 of 5 games where he scored 4.7, 5.0, and 0.0 points in a PPR setup. If we're talking non-PPR, he scored 2.7 points, 2.0 points, and 0 points. And this was a player, remember, before this run of horrid offense, from weeks 5 to 10, he was averaging 5 catches for 77 yards. And he also had 4 touchdowns in 6 games. Everyone was playing this guy. He was looking like one of the better late round or waiver wire pickups of the season. And boom, with that dynamite, and he's just disappeared. I don't know what's more concerning, Darnell Mooney not doing anything last night or Ray-Ray McCloud. The Falcons have done something. Again, last night, all they wanted to do was win this football game by grinding it out. They had no interest whatsoever in trying to fix their offense. As a result, from weeks 2 to 13 to start the year, 2 to 13, I think I saw this over at PFF. They ran 11 personnel on like 91% of the plays, meaning they had one tight end and 3 wide receivers. And we know that because McLeod, Mooney, and London were all playing 95% of the snaps. No one else was getting targets or looks. And then there was Kyle Pitts, right? So weeks 2 to 13, they played 90% of that 11 personnel. Last night, they played 11 personnel 42% of the time. 42%. That's half, obviously. In the last 2 weeks, they've done this. They've gone much more 2 tight end sets. And when they go 2 tight end sets, Kyle Pitts isn't on the field. So it's rather remarkable that Kyle Pitts caught 4 passes last night, to be honest. He led the team in targets and receptions in a game where he played 42% of the snaps. As a result of playing that 12 personnel, the 2 tight ends, Romeo McLeod, who's been playing, again, 90% of the snaps every week, he played 23 snaps last night. 24 snaps last night. Let me pull this up as we're talking here. Yeah, he played 24 of 58 snaps. He and Pitts both played 24 snaps. So when they were in 11 personnel with the 3 wide receivers, Pitts and McLeod were on the field, all 24 snaps. When they were playing 12 personnel, neither one of them had a snap. They were off the field because obviously you only have 2 wide receivers, so McLeod was out. And because Pitts isn't a good blocker, he was out too. This is a drastic change in the offense. Was it only, and this is a trend we started to see the last 2 games, but last night it was pronounced. Is this only because they were playing the Raiders and they knew they could win the football game that way? Or is this a sign of things to come? The bottom line here is with the Falcons moving forward, you can't be starting Ray McLeod. You just can't. And I know that he had 8 catches for 98 yards in week 14. I know it was 4 for 95 in week 13. Game before that, it was 6 catches for 46 yards. I get it. He was your wide receiver 3 in a PPR setup. He was your flex option in a PPR setup. Given what we saw last night, you can't do that in week 16. You just can't. Now, talking about Pitts, like I said, it's remarkable that Pitts actually led the team in targets and catches last night, given that he was on the field less than half the time. That was actually a 3-game high in yards and receptions, even though he was on the field less than half the time. His last touchdown was in week 8. He scored 2 that week, but he hasn't scored a touchdown since week 8. And since that period of time, Kyle Pitts has caught 11 passes for 117 yards and no touchdowns in 6 games. Kyle Pitts is now, what is this, year 4? Yeah, this is year 4. Kyle Pitts is going to go down, starting to look very much like, go down as one of the biggest draft day busts in NFL history. And for a player that is a significant part of his offense, who looks like he's going to play a decade in the NFL, this is not a player that flamed out because he, off the field issues. It's not a player that got hurt. This is not a player that just could never figure it out or ever find his footing. He's had 1,000 yards as a rookie. Caught 68 passes. He had the 1 touchdown and everyone dinged him. But he had 1,000 yards and caught 68 passes. Right now he's got 40 catches and 536 yards. He was supposed to be a generational talent. He was supposed to be the next Travis Kelce. Team doesn't last night didn't even run an offense where he was on the football field. Think about that. From a generational Hall of Fame bound tight end to an offense that said you're not even good enough to do anything besides catch passes. We don't trust you to block, and you're not bringing enough offensively for us to continue to run that personnel grouping. We're going to play you 42% of the snaps and win a football game. Kyle Pitts, be very careful. And that's another thing in the dynasty we talk about it all the time. I always tell people, be cautious in dynasty leagues. People always want to play for the future, play for the now, play for the game of what is, not what could be. Because I remember Kyle Pitts, people were trading multiple picks and players, trying to move up in drafts to draft Kyle Pitts and everything like that. Luckily, Brock Bowers delivered, and we'll talk about him in a second. But Kyle Pitts, ugh. All right, let's move on. Oh, before we move on, by the way, Bijan Robinson, 22 carries for 125 yards. Only caught a single pass last night, I believe. No, yeah, 1 pass for 10 yards. Dude's a monster. He's just great. And for those people that continue to say, well, Tyler Algiers is good, he's not. And if you're thinking that, you're not watching the game because you can tell the difference. Bijan Robinson's fantastic. On the Raiders side of thing, I mean, the bottom line is this with the Raiders. Desmond Ridder is just not good. I'm sorry. He's just not good. Threw for 208 yards, a touchdown, and 2 picks. He ran for 28 yards. Theoretically, because of his athleticism, he could run, he can run for 30, 40 yards a week. He can get you a rushing touchdown every once in a while. That can help offset the poor passing numbers to the point where he's a usable second quarterback in a super flex. but he's just not good. And you watched the game last night. He went 23 for 39 last night, and he's flinging passes all over the field. One of the picks he threw, it's like what the announcer's like, did he not see the safety? Like, what are you doing? He's at a point in his NFL career where he should be able to at least read a defense. Can't. He's a turnover machine, but he doesn't have the upside of Jameis Winston. So he is what he is, and that's a backup quarterback. Shouldn't be starting. There's another reminder of that last night. Aiden O'Connell was a kind of a game time decision-ish. I guess they decided earlier in the day, but there was some hope he would play. Hopefully he's back in Week 16 for the Raiders, because we got some things to talk about here before we visit with Armando Marcel in a couple of minutes. Raiders offense was bad last night, and it starts out with the quarterback. Now in the backfield, McCormick got hurt last night, which obviously was a big downer. McCormick only played 14 snaps. Alexander Madison came on, had a fumble. He played 21 snaps. When you score 9 points, as the Raiders did, and the other team only has 15, so this is not like you were behind by 30 points. With that being the case, if Amir Abdullah is leading your team in snaps at the running back position as he did last night, it's over. And again, this is a trickle down from Desmond Ridder. Desmond Ridder targeted his running back 7 times. He also targeted McCormick 2 times and Madison 4 times. So what is that? 7, 2, 9, 13. He threw as many passes last night, Ridder, threw as many passes last night to the running back as he did to the wide receivers. Amir Abdullah is not usable. Don't make the mistake. He scored a touchdown last night, had the 7 catches. He's only a desperation play if Desmond Ridder is the quarterback again. And even then, you can do better. Don't do it. McCormick, we don't know how much time he's going to miss with the ankle injury. That obviously hurts, because I know everyone for some reason wanted to play McCormick. We had McCormick like running back 31 this week, 32 this week, and tons of people were playing McCormick. I'm not really sure why, because again, McCormick as running back 32 is desperation flex option, not a guy I got to be starting. Everyone seemed to want to start McCormick. I, again, don't know why. But he had established himself as the best running back in the Raiders backfield. At this point in time, we just don't know if he's going to be active. It's too early, 9:30 on a Monday or Tuesday morning. We don't know if he's going to play the next game. Madison came on, didn't do anything. He had a fumble. Amir Abdullah is just a satellite back. He can't run the football. So total uncertainty in the backfield for the Raiders. In terms of the pass catchers, Jacoby Myers, 5 catches, 59 yards, all of that at the end of the game. Like, he didn't do anything the first 3 quarters. At least he got to 559, so he led the team in yards. And I think that's the floor for him. We see it every week. Obviously, it's much higher upside potential with a quarterback that can throw the ball. Aiden O'Connell's not great, but he's better than Desmond Ridder. So, Myers a little disappointing. But again, working with Desmond Ridder, I think that's a win. 11 PPR points with Desmond Ridder is a win for Myers. Now, Brock Bowers is the concerning piece, and they were even saying it on the broadcast last night, please, and I wasn't pleased. Maybe it was pleased. One of the announcers said, please throw the ball to Brock Bowers. Like, your Desmond Ridder, you throw 39 passes. It's a big number of passes, high volume. And you throw 6 of them to Brock Bowers. What are you doing? Now, I say this all the time. You and I understand this. I believe you're a backup quarterback, trying to win football games, trying to look good, trying to convince somebody to give you a starting shot so you don't utilize your best weapon. And I don't care if they're rolling coverage his way. Okay, Desmond Ridder, and that's really the problem with Desmond Ridder. He's always been afraid. He's afraid to throw the ball into tight windows. And when he tries, anyway, he bombs. Of course, he misses open windows too. So he's not good at throwing the ball. But Brock Bowers, 3 catches for 35 yards. That's a killer. That's a killer. That's not even, what's he averaging on a per game basis? Not even half of his per game average this season. What is Brock Bowers averaging? He's not a big touchdown guy to this point. He's only got 4 of them. But Brock Bowers is averaging 15.2 PPR points a game. 15.2. And the last 2 weeks with this crappy quarterback play, he's got 14.7. Just killer. So let's pray that Aiden O'Connell returns some semblance of normalcy. I mean, remember, this is a guy in his last 5 games has 2 games of 10 catches, 125 yards, and a touchdown. In the last 2 games, he's had 14.7 points. Got to keep starting him, of course. And you got to pray, if you've got him, that Aiden O'Connell is back under center for the Raiders. So there's a review of Monday Night Football. Tomorrow, Justin Fensterman will be joined by Rich Miletto. They'll talk about a bunch of stuff. But on Tuesdays at about 12:30 Eastern Standard Time, we always visit with my man. And my man is also your man because he's involved with everything we do over at fantasyguru.com. Go to the Elite Plus tab at the top of the page. If you click on that Elite Plus tab, you can find this show and all the old episodes of Fantasy Sports Daily. You can also find Armando's show, Mind of Marsaul, there. You can find the other ones, Jeff Mann's, Justin Fensterman as well. But you can find Mind of Marsaul from Armando. Click that Elite Plus tab at the top. We've talked to him recently. You know that he's getting more involved in in basketball. If you want to get his basketball work, there's the MVP plan over at fantasyguru.com. If you're interested in doing anything football related, which is probably why you're here, he's all over the place helping us out there. Seasonal DFS wagering, all that kind of good stuff over at fantasyguru.com. Click that subscribe tab in the top right corner and tune in every Tuesday at about 12:30 Eastern Standard Time to see him here. That is Armando Marsaul of fantasyguru.com. How you doing, Armando?
I'm doing good, Ray. I'm digging the background. I like the Christmas tree back there. I like it a lot. So week 16, we're on to week 16. The season is flying by. But still a lot of fantasy football left, right? Still a lot of fantasy.
Yeah.
These are the crucial weeks. These are the important weeks. All the other weeks, that's fluff. These are the important weeks.
Yeah, so go Desmond Ridder. Oh, jeez. Thank you for the talk. For those people that don't know, I have my Christmas tree behind me. And for those of you that I didn't say this earlier, you probably know anyway. But if you follow us live on youtube.com/@ElitePlusNetwork or live on facebook.com/FantasyGuruHQ, you go to either one of those two places, you can follow the show live, watch us, see us, ask questions. This is weird. Maybe it's when you come on, Armando. Did you notice how it just disappeared on me, the background?
I see it did shrink. I did see it, but it shrunk.
Maybe it's only when I have someone else on. I don't know what's going on. But yeah, if you're in either of those two spots, you can ask us questions. There's a bunch of questions coming in. Armando and I will address that throughout. Any takeaways before we get into the waiver wire? Anything from the two games last night? I was just bemoaning the horrid offense in that Falcons-Raiders game. Anything stand out to you in the two games?
It was just bad football. It was bad football all around. Yeah, I mean, look, the Raiders, that's a complete mess. I think we can agree. The bright spot is Bowers. You mentioned the numbers there I was listening to. Like, he's just one of those players that the quarterback situation is not going to impact him as much. I think that what we're going to see here is you're going to limit the seating, right? You're going to limit that upside, that potential, but he's still going to get the opportunities, still going to get the targets. We saw the same thing with Myers, kind of got to a slow start. They kind of got going there. The Vikings, I mean, are we surprised that they beat the Bears? Like, are we surprised that it was, that easy of a game? I don't think it was. One thing, so the big takeaway I would say here, let's continue to target slot receivers against the Vikings. We've seen this now, and we've seen teams try to get the rid of the ball quickly. It's all, you kind of seen it with the slot receivers or the tight end position, quarterbacks going to those positions when they're playing the Vikings. So just keep that in mind. There's a team that's going to blitz a lot. They're going to bring the pressure, and quarterbacks are trying to get the ball out of their hands quickly. And I think that's going to result in a lot of those, short intermediate passes to these slot receivers, the tight end position, maybe some of these pass catching backs. So that is one thing I want to point out, because this was Keenan Allen's second, strong performance against this defense. He's their primary slot receiver. We've kind of seen that now. Slot receivers have success here against this defense. So I did want to point that out because, you don't want to fade a good Vikings defense with a slot receiver just because they're good.
Armando Marsaul of fantasyguru.com for more of his advice. You can ask him questions too in the chat room, read his articles, see his live stream work. Obviously, click that subscribe tab in the top right corner and get the DFS, seasonal, and wagering for football, all three, for the price of one right now. You can also, as you see there on the screen, get those Fantasy Guru gift cards. So do that as well.
Yes.
Let's talk a little waiver wire. We know, Patrick Mahomes has seemingly sprained his ankle 400 times. And every time he comes back and plays quicker than we anticipate. That seems to be the trend. We got the report, from Ian Rappaport saying he's the bionic man. I don't know. I think it makes a lot of sense that he doesn't play this week. Short week this week, short week next week. They're 13-1 or whatever the hell the record is now. Let's assume he's out. If he's out, Carson, Wentz, anything to see there?
QB2, right? We're looking at him as a 1-week rental, probably a top 20, 24 quarterback. So in the super flex or a 2-quarterback league, if you're hurting at that QB2 position, he's someone that you could definitely, consider. If you had Patrick Mahomes and he was one of your quarterbacks and you really don't have a good, third option, if you had to, and we don't want to say Desmond Ridder here, but if you had to lean on someone like Desmond Ridder, you're much better off with someone like Carson Wentz. So really depends on the situation. But I agree with you. Like I don't So there's a high ankle sprain that's generally multiple weeks, but we've seen him play in these situations. The good thing is that they have that luxury of being able to kind of rest him right now. They have a 2-game lead against the Bills. Thankfully, the Rams, helping out the Chiefs there a couple of weeks ago. And I think that, I think they could win without Patrick Mahomes. Are they going to be as dominant? I mean, now, and I mean the regular season. I'm not saying a Super Bowl. I'm saying right now they can continue to win without Mahomes. It obviously is going to be a much more difficult thing to do. But so long as they keep winning, they could sit them out the rest of the year, really. Like, all they're looking is that number 1 seed, getting that bye, and their goal is to win Super Bowls. They don't care really about anything else. They want to win the Super Bowl. And the only way that's going to happen is if they have Patrick Mahomes in their center. And the only way to keep him, healthy and all that is to keep him off the field and let him rest. So, I think it starts this week. If they win, you could see kind of that extent to the following week. If they continue to win, you're just going to see that extend to the end of the season here. So long as they keep that cushion of that 2-game lead over the Bills, I think you could see Mahomes sideline, to be honest.
Armando Marsala, fantasyguru.com, joins us every Tuesday. Let's talk some running backs. And there's a few names here. Let's start out with Jerome Ford. Broken foot for Nick Chubb. Donta Foreman and Pierre Strong are around, but Jerome Ford is the number 1 guy in the backfield, in my opinion. The question is, do we aggressively add him? We don't know who the quarterback is going to be. With all the mistakes that Winston makes, I don't think DTR does anything to help this offense, so that's concerning too. Where are we at with Jerome Ford right now, who might be on waiver wires in a bunch of leagues? Yeah,
I think if he's out there, you go in and you add him. I would say he's someone you prioritize, right? Like if he's out there on waivers, and it's not you to prioritize him. And I feel like we talk about this often, but I think it must be said, right? You're not adding him and prioritizing him because you're going to run and start him, but you could see how this shapes out. Early in the season, we did see him work as the featured back then. He kind of lost those opportunities and kind of became a committee. And then, this past weekend, he had 9 opportunities there, kind of took over that role. So I would assume that, yes, he is the favorite to work as the primary back. I do think he's going to be that featured back. Could be a flex play for some, could be even be an RB2 play for some. But I think he's out there. He's the kind of running back you want on your roster, whether you're starting him or not. So, yeah, I do think that he's someone, if he's available, go out and get this week.
There have been moments the last couple of years where Tyjae Spears is like, all right, this is the week it's going to happen. This is the month he's going to establish himself, and it's never really happened. Tony Pollard was completely phased out of the passing game this weekend. First time all season that's really happened. Still had 17 carries, but didn't do much. We know his ankle's not 100%. We know the team's going nowhere. All of these things. What do we do with Tyjae Spears? Like, is he a must add? Is he an add and who cares? Like, I guess Tony Pollard in theory could get shut down at some point, but I don't know. The Titans offense isn't very good either.
So Spears, I still view as an elite handcuff, right? And yes, he was very involved in the passing game, but this was a game script where the Titans were trailing here in this game. And when you're looking at a Titans team that's trailing by multiple scores, they're gonna run. They're gonna allow Spears to catch these passes in the backfield. So I think that's where you see he does have some standalone value, but it is going to be volatile. Like the standalone value with him is going to be volatile. He's going to get anywhere between those 8 and 12 opportunities, a lot of the passing game that you mentioned. So it's really game script dependent. You talked about the Titans not being a great team. That offense, Levis, that's a disaster as well there. So they have a matchup against the Colts this week. I don't see the Colts being that superior. So I could see a competitive game environment. If that's the case, I expect them to lean a little bit more on Pollard. If the Colts get off to a pretty significant lead, then I think we'll see Spears very involved again in the passing game. And I think that's how you have to view him. And if there's a big spread with a Titans defense, maybe you can flex Spears. But understand, it's just you're really banking on the fact that the Titans are going to be chasing points here and not necessarily playing in a competitive game environment. So I wouldn't want to start Spears, but I do view him as one of those elite handcuffs and a must-own running back at this stage of the season, like even if he's just on your bench. Because if Pollard were to go down, I don't think this team has not been shy about giving Spears opportunities. So I do think that there's a path here if Pollard does miss any time or if they end up slowing him down for whatever reason.
Armando, when a receiver scores a touchdown, as this guy did in week 14, and then in week 15 catches 5 balls for 114 yards, hey, man, we got something here. Now, that receiver happens to be a running back catching passes, and it's Ty Johnson. And I bring his name up because, again, this guy's averaged 15 PPR points last 2 weeks. I looked around. There's some articles talking about adding Ty Johnson. I mean, fool's gold to me because, it's Cook who's the lead running back. Davis is the backup. Johnson's just randomly sprinkled in as catching passes here and there. I think that the game plan against the Lions was geared last week toward Johnson and away from Cooper, who didn't have a target, right? To me, Ty Johnson's fool's gold. What say you?
I agree 100% with you. I mean, 3 opportunities the week before last, 7 opportunities this week. Like, you're chasing that big explosive play that he gives us, right? Like that electric play where he goes for 20+ yards and gets those chunk yardage. That's really what you're hoping for. You take that away, and it's going to be a very low floor, very volatile floor. I tend to stay away from that. I'd rather someone else use those fab dollars on a player like him. But yeah, in a 16-team league, sure, right? Okay, like we're talking to very deeply 12-team league, 10-team league. I'm not looking in that direction whatsoever.
On Marsal of FantasyGuru.com. Let's talk a little bit of the wide receivers. Now, there are some names here that might intrigue us. First one is Jalen Coker, returned from injury, 110 yards and a touchdown. Now, he wasn't covered on the touchdown that went over 80 yards. That helps a lot. But the numbers are there. The snap count was there. He seems to have passed David Moore. So, Legette's got the wrist issue, and I don't know what the hell is going on. We don't know if he's going to play. Like, Coker all of a sudden seems like he might be the wide receiver 2 behind Thielen with the Panthers. What do you think?
Yeah, so it was interesting. So they benched Moore, like you said. Legette got hurt. Coker led all receivers in snaps, offensive snaps for the Carolina Panthers. He was second in routes run behind Thielen. Initially, we saw them kind of splitting that the slot roles and stuff like that, but then they moved Coker to the outside. They continued with Thielen in the inside. So I think that's here to stay, right? Is he going to go out for 100+ yards every week? Maybe not. And I still think Thielen is the number 1 wide receiver on this offense. I still think that he's going to be their go-to. But I think this is going to be some of the Coker that's going to see consistent targets moving forward. A team that I think we expect to play from behind often, right? It's not a great team. So taking that into account, taking the fact that, first game back, leading all receiving snaps, I definitely think you want to add him. Someone that I think you could plug and play as a flex option if you need to, or, wide receiver 4, whatever the case may be. But yeah, if he's out there, I definitely think you should go out there and get him. That role, I don't see it going anywhere.
Mono Marsal joining us here on Fantasy Sports Daily. This name is another name I've seen. We've talked about this guy forever. He's one of the guys we like, Romeo Doubs with the Packers. I've seen some articles like he's a must-get guy. He's the number 1 waiver. It's like he scored 2 touchdowns. What the hell is different with Romeo Doubs now than it was 4 days ago, 4 weeks ago, 4 months ago? It's exactly the same, right? I'm not saying that Romeo Doubs should be on the waiver wire. I don't think he should be. But this excitement about, I got to start this guy now, he's still a wide receiver 4. I mean, at least in my opinion, there's just the volume is not there. The consistency is not there on a weekly basis. What say you?
Yeah, look, everyone running out to get him now is just reacting to the 2 touchdowns, right? Like, we've been talking about Doubs the entire season. Like, you don't drop him. You just hold him. You might not be able to start him every week. He might be an emergency plug and play for you. At the end of the day, like, they spread the ball out in Green Bay, right? He is their guy. When you look in games he's been active, he's leading the teams with a 19% target share. So that tells you everything, right? I'm looking at the numbers here, and you have 19% target share for Romeo Doubs, 17% for Jalen Reed, 15% for Dontavian Wicks, and then 14% for Christian Watson. They spread the ball. And that's not even including the tight ends, right? And that's not even including Jacobs, who's also involved in the passing game. So they spread the ball out. Who's the favorite one there? For me, it's Doubs. But the production is going to be inconsistent. The week to week, floor is not stable. And you just have to understand that there's going to be these kind of weeks. And I do think that when they get to this part of the field, Love does have, trust in Doubs. We've seen this, throughout the year when he's been healthy. So I'm not chasing these touchdowns. I'm just still viewing him as someone that for many weeks now I've been saying, don't drop, hold if you can, because he's an asset. Now, if you dropped him or if he was dropped and you didn't act before this week, you're probably going to have to pay more than you should have been paying for someone like Doubs. So my recommendation is don't overpay. But if he's out there, I would definitely put some, a bit, a percentage or something on him this week, because I do think he's a nice depth piece at the wide receiver position for fantasy managers.
Armando, what about Jalen McMillan, who, when Godwin went down, everyone's like, okay, it's a chance for him to step up, and didn't step up. Then he got hurt and kind of was forgotten. Last 2 weeks, 2 weeks ago it was 4 for 59 and 2 touchdowns. So he's probably added in a ton of places. But in those places that he wasn't added, last week, 575 and 1. So now we have 2 weeks in a row where it's like 22, 19 PPR points. He's gotten in the end zone both times. Not a tremendous amount of volume, but with all the defenses focusing on Mike Evans and Baker Mayfield playing pretty well, Jalen McMillan, what do you think?
Yeah, I definitely think he's someone that I've kind of changed my opinion on the last couple of weeks, because he's still working on the outside. Shepard is a slot receiver there. But like you mentioned, a lot of the attention on Mike Evans. Do I think McMillan's going to come here and score touchdowns every week? No, I think there's going to be some of those weeks where he gives you those 3-4 catches for, 40, 50 yards, and that you're just going to have to kind of live and die with that. Wouldn't necessarily want to start him every week. I think, again, we talk about depth pieces. We talk about players you want on your bench. He is someone you want on your bench at this time. I think that, if there's a game where there's expected to be a shootout between the Bucs and their opponent, maybe you want to, get exposure to, maybe you want to flex him that week. But on a week-to-week basis, he's just someone I prefer to have on my bench as a depth piece than someone I want to plug and play in my starting lineup.
Mondo Marcella, fantasyguru.com. Let's talk about the Dolphins. It continues to be the Jonnu Smith show. I mean, he's the most consistent pass catcher on this team right now. Tua Tagovailoa didn't play well last week. 4 turnovers, I think it was. Jalen Waddle got hurt, so we don't know what his availability is like. Malik Washington stepped up last week in the absence of Waddle. You have to think that he's their wide receiver 2 behind Hill if Waddle is out. So this one, twofold. One, are we aggressively adding Washington? And if we are or aren't, what happens if Waddle is out in this offense? Is he startable?
So I would go out and get Washington because I think you could get him at a cheap price. And I talked about this in the trending article. You can get him at a cheap price right now, right? You look at the Dolphins. So Waddle injured, right? He was already dealing with a hamstring injury. Now he's dealing with a knee injury. So there's 2 injuries here for Waddle that we're dealing. They also released Odell Beckham Jr. last week. We saw obviously the scary injury there to Doubs. So that receiving group is very thin, behind Tyreek Hill. And you mentioned Jonnu Smith is right now their best pass catcher. He's been the most consistent, pass catcher in this offense. We know Devontae Chan is also, very involved in the passing game. So you have to take all of that into consideration. But Washington could end up being that 4th guy in the pecking order, a team that passes the ball a lot, right? The team, we know that he also gets, special team opportunities there. So there's going to be, if he breaks for a touchdown, very seldom does that happen, but you have that opportunity as well. Look, he had 15% target share. He had 6 targets, second most routes run, second most snaps among receivers there for the Dolphins. There's going to be a role. Is he an automatic plug and play? Not necessarily, but is he someone that you can use in case of an emergency? If you're hurting at the position, if you're dealing with injuries, whatever the case may be. Yeah, I think so. I definitely think he's someone you can plug and play. I can see a path to 5 to 7 opportunities for someone like Washington. He's also someone that they can use as a runner out of the backfield, with an end around. So they can use him in different ways. And if he's on the field more, I think there's going to be more opportunities for him. So yeah, I think he's that player you add that's going to be very cheap that you can actually maybe utilize in the flex if Waddle does miss time.
Let's talk a couple of tight ends. Let's first off start with the Jaguars. A lot of people, including myself, were disappointed with Evan Ingram. He caught us 4 or 5 passes every week, but it was 4 or 5 passes for 45 yards, no touchdowns. And week after week, it was kind of the same thing. And whether it was Lawrence or Mac Jones, it's just the same thing. When he was out early in the season, Brenton Strange was in there, and Brenton Strange was doing the exact same thing. 3 or 4 catches, 35 yards, who cares? So Ingram is out now as the season's over, and Mac Jones decides, let's go, yippee-ki-yay time. He throws 12 targets to Brenton Strange, who catches 11 of them. Strange doesn't get in the end zone. He averages, 6 yards a catch or whatever the hell it was, 73 yards, right? So it was exactly the same as the way the tight end has basically been utilized all season, but twice as many targets as they've normally used. Now, Jones threw a bunch of passes. Is this fool's gold chasing this? Is this a new trend? Is this the way it's going to be? Or is this, seemingly to me, just a standout effort because both the other both the tight ends this season have not been the guy that we saw last week against the Jets.
Look, I think it's a very good effort. You shouldn't be chasing tight end 2 production, though, right? Like, that's what he finished last week in PPR settings, tight end 2 in fantasy scoring. I'm not chasing 11 receptions, 73 yards. I would be chasing 4 to 5 receptions, 40 to 50 receiving yards on a week-to-week basis, like a floor, right? Like a safe play where you're not going to get a 0. I do think that's what we're going to get. You mentioned it earlier in the season. There was a period of time where he had some opportunities there and was pretty consistent. The ceiling is not high, the upside is not significant, but someone that it's a tight end position that a lot of people are streaming. It's a tight end position that there's a lot of volatility. If you're looking to avoid a 0, I think someone like Strange makes a lot of sense. But again, he'll be outside of that, top 12 for me, maybe like top 20 on a week-to-week basis. There's going to be maybe inside the top 15 some weeks, really depending on the matchup. But yeah, I do think that there's going to be plenty of opportunities here. Remember, there's another team that also has lost a lot of receivers, right? We've seen Thomas Jr. having a phenomenal run right now as well. So there are going to be opportunities and a team that's going to be chasing points. But I just wouldn't expect 11 catches each and every week.
Armando, Stone Smartt, would you have more interest in him over Strange if you were looking at these 2 tight ends? I guess we still don't know for sure on Will Dissly. But Smartt was added in some leagues last week. He'll obviously be added in a bunch of leagues this week as well. 5 catches for 50 yards. The tight end position is one with the Chargers offense that, it's going to produce something, nothing exciting, much like the Jaguars, kind of just there. I'm continue to be stunned by the fact that the Chargers seemingly want to run 32 plays a game. Like, they just don't. You know what I mean? It's like
it's really frustrating.
Nothing.
So frustrating.
Yeah, they're. We got 17 points. Let's shut her down. Like, it's just so weird. But Stone Smartt, like, last couple of games, he's been effective. And if Dissly's out, there's a role for him.
I feel like they're playing 1990s football, right? Like it's like, what are we doing here? Yeah. But look, I agree with you. I think if you're investing in Smartt, you're investing in the role of the tight end for the Chargers. And I think you mentioned that. I think that's important, right? Because Dissly has stepped into that role and kind of did it. We thought Hurts was going to do it. So we know what the role is here. It's just a matter, is it going to be Smartt or is Dissly going to, be able to play? And I think that's really where it ends up for me. This is why Strange is the easier option if I have to choose between one of the 2, because we know already that Ingram is out. We know he's on IR, his season's done. So it's going to be Strange the rest of the way. As far as Smartt is concerned, we truly don't know. We should have that. I think they play Thursday, if I'm not mistaken, right, against the Broncos. So we should have that information early on, but most waivers are going to run tonight, if not tomorrow. So you will have to make that decision beforehand. So I definitely would go Strange, but keep an eye on Dissly's status. I think you're comparing apples to apples here. I don't think that there's one that has a much higher exceeding or much higher upside over the other.
Armando Marsal of fantasyguru.com. Again, every Tuesday, 12:30 Eastern Standard Time, he stops by. We talk waiver wires. Let's look at some of those comments in the chat room over at YouTube. Danny R says, hello, Ray. The playoffs, thanks to Elite Sports, are happening. I have Kamara, but I've handcuffed him with Miller, so I'm good. And it's fascinating to me. We talk about this forever, right? The handcuffing thing. And you say it, I say it, I think we all say it. You should do it from the start. But if you don't do it from the start, when the weeks hit double digits, you gotta do it. And Alvin Kamara, maybe he plays this week, maybe he doesn't with the groin injury. Miller stepped in last week, looked pretty good. Miller would be getting 18 touches this week. Like, that's the way you win in fantasy football. Hopefully more people are doing what Danny did.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I honestly could not agree more. I think we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, right? Where we prefer the running back depth versus the wide receiver depth. And even if you don't own some of these running backs, you could still get these handcuffs, right? Like, especially if you have that space. And I've kind of been doing that in my leagues. Like, when Kendrick Miller was dropped, I added him. When Garendo was dropped, I added. Like, it's not always going to work out, right? When Vidal was dropped, I added him. Like, I've done that, and I've just dropped receiver depth that I'm not using, that I know I'm not going to use, and that's kind of what I like to do. Yeah, so great job here. I think if these guys are still available, like Spears and them, go get them now. Like, go get them now. It's better to have running back depth than receiver depth at this point in the season. I truly stand by that because it's easier to replace a wide receiver off of waivers than it is a running back.
I feel really bad for Angelo.
Uh-oh.
His opponent in one league has Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts. It's over, Angelo. I'm sorry. I wonder if it's a 2 QB or super flex league.
Wait a minute. Is this a 2 quarterback league?
Even if it's a 1 quarterback league, like what are people doing? Like, it's make someone made a
he has to start one.
Along.
You can only start one in the 1 quarterback.
Right? Made a trade somewhere along the road. It's just craziness.
Yeah, that wouldn't make sense.
Yeah. Let's see here. Angelo also said, I'm glad he didn't start Mooney. Like, circling back to the Falcons game, what do you do with these guys? I spent minutes talking about the whole offense and everything like that, but even last night, London, they only had 3 targets. Like Mooney wasn't used. They threw 1 ball to him last night. And again, it was an outlier, but his production 3 of the last 4 games, I think he's been under 30 yards.
Yeah, this Falcons offense just not look great. Like Kirk Cousins looks bad. Like I hate to say it because I'm a big fan of the guy. He's not looking good out there. Like at what point do they make the change? Like they're not. I know, but I know they gave him the money, so they're not gonna. But
right. 1 touchdown and 9 interceptions in 5 games.
It does not look good, and I think that's the problem, right? Like the problem is the quarterback play, and I think that's what's it's kind of you're seeing it with Mooney, kind of seen it with Pitts for a long time now. Ray McLeod, I mean, he has his moments. I mean, even the run game struggled yesterday, and I think a lot of that's because the quarterback play is struggling here. I'm just concerned. At this point, I think it's very difficult to trust anyone outside of London or Bijan in this offense. I think Mooney's still okay. You could still say he's a flex option, but now you have to understand it does come with that volatility that you weren't seeing earlier in the season. You do have that volatility that has always been part of Mooney's game.
At least he's better than Desmond Ritter.
Yes.
It's not saying much, but Jim C. watched Shop Around the Corner yesterday. Glad you enjoyed it. That movie with James Stewart. Check it out, folks. He's got Mahomes, and he doesn't know if Mahomes is going to play. So he's looking at the waiver wire, and Cousins is out. He's listed there, but we're not going Cousins. I can say that without even asking Armando. No. Other names: Richardson, Nix, Rodgers, Wilson, and Caleb Williams. Interesting here. Russell Wilson has done nothing for 2 games without George Pickens. Not his fault. They're not passing the ball effectively. They couldn't run it all last week either. So I'm really hesitant because we still don't know about Pickens with him. So for me, it's Richardson, Nix, Rodgers, and Williams. That's for me. Can you narrow it down further? Who would you target?
Yeah, it would be Richardson for me.
Me too, and I hate it.
I know. Okay, so I was going to say, like if you want to go with a safer option, there's this player, but I don't see a safer option in this bunch, right? Like Cousins, we just talked about it. That's looked like a complete disaster. Rodgers is not going to play the Jacksonville Jaguars every weekend. Caleb, he's looked like he's had some good moments, but he's kind of looked, like last night. I know it's a tough matchup. Who are they playing this week? It's Detroit. I'll say this: it's between Richardson, Nix, and Williams for me, and I'll put them in that order. Okay. I don't feel great about any, but I'm going to take that rushing ability that Richardson provides. That kind of what sets him apart from me. I do like the matchup for Williams, though. Detroit's defense is really banged up.
Yeah, everyone. They lost 3 players for the season this weekend too. 2 defensive backs and their nose tackle.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's go to David P., who's got a similar question. Also has Mahomes. How long should I wait to make a move? If you need to make a move at quarterback, there's 2 ways to look at this. Make a move immediately just to give yourself some depth. Secondly, there's only likely to be 4 teams still playing, right? That's very much and so look at your other teams. Is someone else starting Russell Wilson in your league, or has everyone got a top 7 quarterback? So I think that would be part of the answer to the question. But similar names here: Richardson, Williams, and Wentz. You just said Richardson you liked. You said you'd take him ahead of Williams. So I'm assuming for you, Carson Wentz would be 3rd on this list, Armando.
Yes, he would be. I would be so interested to know who else they have at quarterback and if they can roster 4. Because I would pull out Williams out of the player pool this week and not give your opponents access to him unless they're set at quarterback. But like you mentioned, if someone's starting like a Russell Wilson or someone's starting like a Aaron Rodgers or Cooper Rush, that they might be inclined to start someone like Williams. I like the idea of adding both and then making a decision here. Because you can also kind of flip-flop both of these, right? If let's say Mahomes missed multiple weeks, you don't necessarily have to stick with Richardson the rest of the way. You can now choose between Williams and Richardson. So I actually like the idea in a super flex setting like this one of adding both of these quarterbacks this week.
Aaron's got a comment. He's talking. I often say, in an ideal world for me, we play all this season, go all through this stuff, make the finals 2 weeks. Play weeks 17 and 18, make it the finals. Some leagues do it in different ways. Aaron's league does this. They do 2-week round 1 playoffs and 2-week championship playoffs. So they have 2 rounds of playoffs, both of them 2 weeks. And Aaron says this is dumb. What do you think, Armando?
Why are we joining a league that you think is dumb with the rules? Don't do that. I've never been part of this league, this kind of format myself. I've heard of the 2-week finals. I've been part of those before. I think those are okay. I think those are cool. Like, especially if it extends to week 18. Like, let's keep playing. Why not? But yeah, I'm assuming there's only 4 teams making. Like, you do this if you're you do this if you're trying to keep playing fantasy for a couple more weeks. That's the only logical reason for me. Outside of the finals. The finals, I get it if you want to kind of reduce the variance that comes with fantasy football at that stage of the season. But look, if you don't like the rules, don't join the league. Don't join the league. But yeah, I've no strong lean or no strong take on anything here with this kind of setting.
To me, again, I've championed the 2 for the finals before. I don't mind the 2 for both if only 4 teams are making it because, I want to remove, if I can, the variance that is such a huge part of this game. The 0-catch Mooney effort, the 0-catch, Jaden Reed effort, those kind of things. Let's get rid of that. Give our opportunity for the better teams to win. But again, like Armando says, read the rules, and if you don't like them, there's zillions of setups.
The Cooper Cups zeros, the Amari Coopers. Where are we?
Right.
I don't know what the hell happened with Amari Cooper. I'll be honest with you. It was the biggest shock. I was looking the entire game. I'm like, there has to be some injury that we don't know about. Right. Something happened. Right. And I'm just, what was?
He had 0 targets, and he's still averaging 7 targets the last 2 games. So yeah, 14-0. That's not.
It's
normal.
Insane.
That's not insane. Armando Marsal of fantasyguru.com. He's again with us every Tuesday at about 12:30 Eastern time. I know tonight you've got the live stream talking football. You've got the DFS live stream on Sundays. How about the basketball stuff? How's that going right now?
Good. We were in there yesterday, Fensty and I. There's only one game tonight, but we'll be in there. There's a showdown slate. I know we get some questions for that. We'll be in there. Basketball contest going great though. It's every week. We got usually 2 of us in there answering questions an hour before tip off. There's cheat sheets. There's the DFS breakdowns. We got that, in the weekend as well. And like you said, we got a lot of football content still going on. We still going to have playoff content. You know that when DFS continues in the playoffs, we're going to have our staff picks, the playoff staff picks as well. We got all that stuff going on. So still a lot going on, Ray. Still a lot going on. I know that we're getting down closer to the end of the NFL regular season, but there's still a lot of football left in not only this year, but early on next year. So looking forward to all of that.
Yeah, and remember, folks, subscribe tab in the top right corner. For the rest of the season, you get everything we do for football. All of it. Chat rooms, Discord, articles, rankings, all of it for one price for DFS, seasonal, and wagering. So click that subscribe tab in the top right corner, get all that stuff Armando's talking about. Also click that subscribe tab, get the MVP package, which is golf, NASCAR, college basketball, NBA, NHL, horse racing, all of that to get Armando and the crew's work. That's the MVP package over at fantasyguru.com. All right, Armando. I don't know if we're doing a show next week. We haven't talked about it. We're going to talk about it after. So it's Christmas Eve. I don't know if we're going to – I may not see you next week. So if I don't, happy holidays. If I see you, I'll wish you happy holidays again next week. But thanks for coming on today. Really appreciate it. And we'll talk to you next week or the week after.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for having me on. Always a blast talking football with you, Ray. Good luck to everyone this week. May you guys keep trucking.
That's Armando Marsal giving you the advice and giving you the good vibes that you need to have success in week number 16. For Armando, I am Ray. This has been Fantasy Sports Daily. Justin Fensterman and Rich Miletto here tomorrow at 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time while I'm with Jeff Manns on the SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio show, Elite Sports, from 3 to 6 Eastern. That show is Monday through Friday. Again, for Armando, I'm Ray. We're out. Good luck this week in week 16. You've been watching Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by FantasyGuru.com.